the zoning board of appeals for the village of Armada would come to order. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have an agenda. Everyone has an agenda. Can we get an approval of it?
I just want to make sure everybody's got a copy that says 74322 Spencer?
Yes.
Okay. I had grabbed an earlier appeal and realized that I passed that out. I think I collected all the copies and tore them up. So, okay. Just want to make sure everybody's good. All right.
We have an approval of the agenda. Any comments?
I'd make a motion that the agenda be approved as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it.
Okay.
So tonight,
Let me write that down real quick.
Yeah.
I just got to go slow here. So, Roz and Kevin, all approved. Okay.
so tonight we have a new member here. Kevin, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Welcome everybody coming tonight. Life's cold, like to be out. So tonight we have a variance appeal coming up again for Spencer Street, and since I was the inspector looking at that, I'm gonna back out of it and have him take over. Tonight he'll be acting chair, and I'll just be speaking as a building inspector, and I'll come back and do it as chair after we're done with this hearing.
Okay, and him is who?
I'm sorry?
Him is who?
Mike St. John.
Mike.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
So with that, Mike, if you wanna take over as chair?
Okay. Board chair remarks. We have remarks.
Any initial comments, Mike, before you go into it?
I do not.
Okay. You mind if I?
That's what I was asking. Does anybody else? Go right ahead.
Thanks. Just, I think most of the folks that have been on the board for a while, Kevin, this is his first case, know that I, as a secretary, usually go and look at the zoning ordinance and write up a summary. I always say in the summary that it's just my opinion, and I encourage everybody else to go out, do their own investigation, and do a look at it. But I do that because some of these get fairly complicated. I gotta say, yours has been the most complicated one that I've had to deal with. It would, on its face, seem very simple, but it got quite complicated. In fact, you're gonna hear an issue in a second, and you're gonna go, oh, and I think we're gonna proceed with this instead of canceling it. Now, I'm setting you up here, but it sounds like, but I'm not. And I'll explain that to the group here once we get into the discussion. But just to orient the group, what I've got in front of you, of course, you've got.
You want to open the public hearing first, so?
Well, you've got an agenda for tonight. You've got Ms. Porter's application, ZBA appeal application. You've got my appeal summary, which I did revise several days ago as I looked at this again. This one's been quite complicated in some respects. I've got a recommended decision sequence, just because otherwise you can bounce all over the zoning ordinance and think that this takes precedence, but in reality there's another piece of it. What really complicates this is she's got a non-conforming property that we're walking into to begin with. And then I've got minutes of the last meeting, and I do have attached to it the sign-in sheet. You guys don't have it. I didn't. It's not worth giving it to you, but I am going to submit this to Becky for the record, so she's got that. I do have a couple other pieces of paper that I'm going to refer to, and these are field sheets from the township hall, looking at Ann's house and when the porch was put on and when the original deck that was enclosed was put in and so on. So I'm going to refer to those. I didn't give them to you. If you want to see them, I can pass them down when we talk it. So, okay, I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead then.
Okay, so, next on the list would be appellant remarks.
So,
And
Yeah.
then-
and this is your chance to talk about why this is a hardship or a deficiency in some way from your perspective.
Okay, you guys want me to stand?
Um,
I know we usually
I,
do it.
no, I
Pretty
think you can,
informal.
And left, and left.
The decks on my house, when I bought it 10 years ago, were old then. They were wood and the railings were really bad. And last fall, I had the one in the back replaced and did it in Trex material so that hopefully it would be maintenance free and last me the rest of the time I'm there. The front one is the same condition. The wood's gotten really bad, the railings are bad. And so I started thinking about I'd like to replace it in the same material that I did in the back, so they would match each other. I guess my thinking was if I was gonna do that, I would like to make the porch more functional, because right now it's not. It's not big enough. You can't even really put a chair on it. It mainly just serves the purpose of stepping up to get into the front door of the house. And that's another issue with it. I think it's lower than it should be. So when I talked to the contractor, I talked to him about bringing it up a little bit, because when you step out of my house onto it, I have some older friends that have a hard time doing that. And so my thinking was I would like to just expand it, not come out any further toward the sidewalk, but continue the line that's there across the front of the house so that it would be longer and I could make the opening even a little bigger so that it's easier trying to get in and out. When my son and his family come, it's hard trying to get the luggage, the dog, the cages, all of that in the front door because that space is so small. The other thing was that I'd like to put an overhang over it. When I first bought the house, there was one of the big old village trees out in front, and it did provide a lot of shade in the house. And that got really hollow and rotten and became dangerous, so the village took it down. And now I get full sun in the afternoon in that sunroom, and it gets so hot in there that you can't really even sit out there in the afternoon. So my thought was that if I had the overhang over the porch part, then it would help cool the front as well. And that's basically, what I wanted to do. Right, I hate to just rebuild it the way it is because it's just not really very functional.
okay, so essentially the practical difficulty is you believe it's inadequate to do anything other than just barely
Into the house.
get into the house. And I say barely, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you feel it's artificially low and it's a bigger step.
Right.
Why don't we do that in public discussion though? She's
Well-
already spoken, let's open the public hearing,
Well, we can
and then we can discuss that.
certainly do that. I just, however you want to handle it, that's fine.
I would open the public hearing,
And I make
that'd be the next
a
step.
motion to open the public hearing at 7:11.
We have a second.
Second.
Okay, got to get a
Motion to approve.
completed motion on that, so is there a second?
All those in favor?
Those 1 and 2.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Who was the second? I'm sorry.
Mike,
Mike, okay.
Now we can have discussion, board discussion.
Actually, the reason I was kind of wavering there is because we really don't have a public besides
Yeah,
Ann. So,
yeah.
and I think we will maybe, do you want to talk? You
No,
gotta
but
put your
I'm
name on the
public.
paper then.
You're public.
No, I recognize Joe there.
you're waving your arms back and forth. We want to say something.
I mean, you're welcome to comment. If you do though, Joe, we gotta have you sign in.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
And since you didn't want to sign in, I assume you're just playing camera person. Okay, well, it's open to the public, so did you have any comments?
Not at this point.
Okay.
I'm happy to answer if you have any questions.
Well, I think, I would just say, I'm just a secretary, but I think we'll wind up asking Ann some other questions as we go. I was looking to see if there was anybody else that would come in to support or speak out in denying giving Ann the variance she's asking for. So since we don't have any, I would recommend we close the public hearing and then we just continue to have a conversation. Subject to what you want to do, Dennis or Mike. Mike, I guess you're running it, so.
I would say, since we don't have anyone here for an open public comment, you can close that part of
All right, then I
the hearing.
would make a motion then at 7:13 that we close the public hearing.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, let me, and I'm gonna say 7:13, close at 7:13. It was, and again, I didn't quite catch it. Mike did you second or Kevin, did you?
I seconded it.
Kevin, and I'm just gonna cite that we had no other, sorry Joe, no other public members on record, other than Ann, so, no public,
Make it easy.
okay.
I'm sorry,
All right.
say again?
I'll make it easy.
Uh-oh.
So I'm just gonna continue then, you tell me to put a sock in it if you want. Just that, I think you were explaining a practical difficulty and you wish to expand the porch laterally and add a roof to it.
Right.
Okay, all right. So I'm just gonna follow my recommended decision sequence, as I walk through this. So the first thing I ask myself, and again, please speak up, please disagree. I said, were there any new narrative changes in this newly adopted zoning ordinance that changed the effect of anything that we've looked at here from what was there in the past? I did not find any. What was a little cumbersome was that we were in the process of finalizing through our attorney and publishing the zoning ordinance. So I started out with the old zoning ordinance as my reference because we wanted to get this done within a requisite amount of time, and then the new ordinance came out, and I had to go back and check the things that I cited, and I did not find any issues. I didn't find any changes that effectively changed what I had put into my summary. So given that, then the next question is the current house facade and porch a nonconformity? I don't think you can argue that it is not. It is a non-conforming structure according to current village zoning ordinance. So then what I did is I went over to to the township hall to try to ascertain when the front original porch was enclosed and when the newer small porch addition was put on, and just to see if it was current. You did say, Ann, that it was, it was there when you bought it 10 years ago,
Right.
which puts us at about 2015, 2014, something like that. So I asked the assessor over there. I've got a couple field sheets. Again, I can pass them around if you want to see them. So one field sheet from 1979, February of 1979, it shows the original porch as being enclosed. So that's been that way for a number of years. And so obviously that pre-exists the last and the current zoning ordinance. And then I found another picture which shows that small front porch addition, the newer one. And this is a picture from 1995. So I can't quite tell when these were put on. It doesn't have that information here, but the pictures tell me that both the old enclosed porch, which is closer than the front yard setback allows it to be, and the newer small porch that Ann seeks to expand have both been there for a number of years. And so, in my mind, that effectively, they effectively become non-conforming structures according to the current code of ordinance, zoning ordinance, not code of ordinance, zoning ordinance. Okay, so now this is where things get extra complicated. I'm going back through it again today, just because this is a complicated thing. And what I've found, and this is what I was alluding to earlier, is the zoning ordinance says if you have a nonconformity, it should be classified as a Class A or Class B nonconformity. And the way you do that, you do it for a number of reasons, mostly to be allowed to do things with structures, land use, sites, and so on that are not conforming. They don't conform to the current code. And so based upon my interpretation, planning actually should have looked at this and made a determination whether yours was a Class A or a Class B. And what the language generally says here is if you're not designated a Class A, then you're Class B. I did call the village. I talked to Becky. I said, has planning designated any houses, sites, anything in the village as Class A? No, it has not. I think one of the reasons why that hasn't happened is this is a tough section of the zoning ordinance to understand and get your arms wrapped around, and we haven't really dealt with that here, and we haven't designated anything a Class A or a Class B. If you had gone to planning, you would have said, hey, Ann, I want to do this to my house, and can I be considered a Class A? If you are considered a Class A, you get fairly broad latitude to do things, right? So it could have potentially made life maybe a little bit easier here. I'm not going to cite them. I've got them tabbed here, highlighted. I could go find them, but it rattles off 4 or 5 different things that would allow the planning commission to designate your house, that porch, as a Class A non-conforming structure. And you satisfy most of them. I mean, I think you satisfy all of them. I don't think that I found anything that causes an issue. So if you had gone to planning, I'm fairly confident, and said, this is all I want to do, fairly confident planning would have potentially said, yes, you can do that stuff. And what it does is provides you a protection well into the future so that somebody can't come back around and say, you got to take this out or you got to knock it down. One of the biggest things that I looked at is it says if the change does not reduce property values or overly cause an impact to the residential area or the district it's in, it should be allowed. So again, this is my interpretation, gentlemen, as I think she would have got a Class A designation conferred if you had gone to planning. The big issue is it requires a public hearing. When I got involved in this, I was just told there's an appeal. So I didn't go and ask a bunch of questions about why it didn't go through planning. So we're now in a ZBA appeal, and I think we just declare it as a Class B for discussion purposes. I think the result's going to potentially be the same, but to do it any different, we would have to close this meeting, send you back to planning, go through all that rigmarole, and then potentially you could come back. Now there's a couple ways. I'm going through some explanation here because if you were denied a Class A, you could come to zoning and we could review that. You could, if you were denied a Class A, you could come back to planning in 365 days and ask again. So there's several remedies. They give the property owner several different bites at the apple. All right. So I guess with our apologies for whatever reason you didn't go through planning, so you're here now. So I think we want to continue and get you to a decision one way or the other. Then we get into the third part of the sequence. We've got some of those other things kind of out of the way, and in my mind, gentlemen, this is the part that really requires you to think about it. So, what's a correct interpretation of Section 2203, Paragraph A? Now, this is talking Class B non-conforming properties. And Paragraph A says you can't enlarge or alter the non-conforming structure if it increases the non-conformity. But you can enlarge it or alter it in a manner that does not increase its non-conformity. That's what it says, right? There's no underlying language that goes on to explain what they really mean by that. So it's fairly ambiguous to me. So then the next thing and please disagree with me if you don't, the next thing I thought about is, okay, well, it's talking about increasing the nonconformity. What's the nonconformity? The nonconformity is setback. That expanding the deck, laterally expanding the deck and putting on laterally expanding the porch. I want to make sure I call it a porch, not a deck. And putting on a porch roof. Under normal circumstances, if you had the required setback distance, there's not an issue to do that within certain guidelines. It can't be. You can't have gutters that extend way out. You can't. There's other things, but everything that's in your site plan shows that you're not moving outside of the current setback that you have. Okay, so I want to make sure I get this out there because it's key. They're talking about increasing the nonconformity. You guys may have a different interpretation of what increasing the nonconformity is, but if the nonconformity is the setback and Ann's old enclosed porch is 12 feet away from the right-of-way. The new zoning ordinance says it can't be any closer than 20 feet. Well, that enclosed porch, which has been there for many, many years, is 12 feet away. If you add on the dimensions of the deck porch that currently exists, that takes it to about 7.5 feet away from the right-of-way. And so what Ann is asking to do is not move any closer to the right-of-way, but laterally increase the size of the deck so it becomes useful and put a roof over it so it provides shade. So, I'm kind of interested in hearing what you guys think about it, and then maybe we ask the building inspector what he thinks. But as I say here, you got to decide what altering or enlarging refers to. Any thoughts by you guys? I mean, how do you interpret it? I wish that they. I will say I did go to the township. I looked at the township ordinance. They have something that's similar, not the same, and it's a bit convoluted as well. But then they have a paragraph after it that explains pretty much what they mean by it. We do not, and so, as I say, in my mind, that's ambiguous. And so when they talk about increasing the nonconformity, what would we increase here? It would be the setback, because that's what she's asking for a variance on, is that setback issue. She's not increasing the setback. So again, I'm going to shut up for a second and let you guys. Let me know if you have any different thoughts. I may be missing the interpretation. Or if you guys don't, can I?
I can chime in if you guys.
Sure, yeah.
I'm working.
So when I was going through the packet, I was originally going through the fact there was a tree, now there's not a tree. I misunderstood. I thought they removed it when they redid the street. I didn't realize it was diseased.
It was.
But the fact still remains the same. There was a tree, now there's not a tree. So the property owner wants to do work on her property. And when I was going through the ordinances, so 2203B, normal repairs and maintenance, this article shall not prevent work required for compliance with the provision of any building code in effect in the village, or Michigan housing laws regulating the maintenance of buildings or structures. So the part that I think is relevant here is normal repair, maintenance, or replacement of interior non-bearing walls, fixtures, wiring, plumbing, or heating and cooling systems in Class B non-conforming structures may be permitted in accordance to applicable code requirements. Given the fact that there was a tree which was providing shade and now there's not, and the property owner wants to put in a porch not enclosed but have a roof which will provide some shade, my interpretation is that would apply as a cooling system, and that would be permissible under village ordinances.
I struggled a little bit with this one because it appears to me to be talking about what they call the primary structure, which is the house itself, not necessarily a porch. But it doesn't seem to prevent it. So I did put it here that this appears aimed at a residence or business or public building. Porches are treated differently in the zoning ordinances. So let's just talk about porches for a second. We get into it later on here, but it allows a porch, as I think I mentioned earlier, to be added to under the current zoning ordinance with a house that is set back that will require 20 feet from the right-of-way. It requires a porch that's at least 8 feet out. So That would take it to, 12 feet from the right of way. If you were right at 20 feet, you could have an 8-foot porch or an 8-foot deck or something akin to that that goes into the right of way. That's permissible. It then also says, but under no circumstances can anything like a porch, a deck, be closer than 5 feet to the right of way. So what Ann is asking to do is to laterally expand that porch to the north side of her house, as you know, we kind of talked about in the summary. It goes on the north side of the house, and because this is a corner lot, it's got 2 front yards, so it should, in theory, it should be 20 feet and 20 feet. Well, there's no issue with Prospect because the facade of the house is 21 feet 6 inches back, so you don't even look at Prospect Street. It's not an issue there. If Ann decided to take that porch and extend it and wrap it around like some old houses do, it could very well violate that, but it doesn't. It doesn't move anything closer to the right-of-way than the current porch already is. So it's, again, in my mind, it's not increasing the nonconformity. The nonconformity already exists because it's an old building. So it's already there, it already exists. Now, where you could get into a discussion is this is an expansion, this is adding to, does that violate what increasing means? I don't know. My interpretation is it doesn't. It's not increasing her, the encroachment into the setback already. And again, the encroachment that exists has been there for many years. What comes into question is, well, you've got ground that nothing has been on, is laterally expanding across there, but not going any further into the setback. Is that an issue or not? Again, it's ambiguous, and I don't know. I've talked to some other people, and they've argued, well, that is increasing the nonconformity in terms of volume, but it doesn't talk about that in the zoning ordinance, and that, you know, planning, the ZBA tries not to make it up. It just tries to use what's there.
Right.
And one of the values of having a zoning board of appeals is if something's ambiguous, we get to interpret it. And so that's kind of what we're doing here. If I can ask, what are your thoughts as the building of?
Well, and that's the reason why when she proposed this, it was because it's in the front yard setback area. That's why you have to get a variance to approve it. But we did look at the other part, there's another part of the ordinance about taking the averages of the street and then using those as an area that allow that encroachment into the front yard.
Yeah, we had that, I had that in my initial summary, and I went back and I was telling Dennis, I went back and looked at that and took it out because I think it's primarily, it doesn't really say it, but I think it's primarily looking at, let's say, an old section of the village that's got houses that are much closer to the street than current zoning ordinance would allow. And if you had a vacant lot and you wanted to build a new house on that vacant lot, the zoning ordinance does allow you to look at the average distance away from the lot line, from that right-of-way, and put a house there. So I think Dennis, when I asked him to give me an average, and I think you said 14, give or take 14 feet. So if the front of the houses on that street are roughly 14 feet, you could put a new house up and make it 14 feet. So
typically it's the living space has got to be 20 feet back, but a porch can extend into that front yard.
Well, if it was
there's a house
12 feet, and you could add up to, I guess where I was going with that is, if you put that house at 14 feet, it allows you to do that, and then you can put a porch that's up to 8 feet out. So what is that? So
12 feet away.
12, 10,
20.
8 feet. It could be 8 feet out, which puts you at, she's at 7.5, and that's 8 feet. So you could go 8 feet out with a new house that's an average, that meets the average of houses on the block, which is 14 feet. So
We actually have a house on Spencer there, it's even less than what she has, it's close, across the street from you.
yeah,
And it's like, it doesn't really quite meet the average, but it certainly brings that down, that number.
well, and so what they're trying to do, I think, by some of this, is to make things that you put in there fit in with everything else that's on the street. I guess the nearest corollary I could come up with is if you got a bunch of Victorians on the street and then you put a very modern house right smack dab in the middle, stuff just looks out of place. I mean, it's from a design and architectural standpoint, it just looks
Well, there's
really
another way
weird.
to look at it too. If you look at a lot of the reasons for the setbacks are because of that, like corner yard clearances. If you come up to the corner, you want to be able to see around it.
Mhm.
It's not really going to make much difference in that. If you come up Spencer, you're looking around to Prospect or the other way around. Adding that section on is she's far enough back.
Well, and I would,
And it won't be
and it's also
enclosed.
not going to.
What's that?
It won't be enclosed.
Right.
That's what I was. It's not going to be
Right.
enclosed.
Correct.
So, you want to recognize Joe, Mike, or?
Oh, I'm sorry.
When you was researching the township records, did they say anything about why it was approved? You said that you found that it was approved prior to, I know the porch was there in 1995.
Yeah, they did not, Joe. It's a good question. Tom was not there. His daughter was not there. So all I got were the records, and I looked to see where there were dates and trying to see if they had some of these structures added in there. And even the one from 95 does not have the little porch added on, although in the picture you can see it. So, in other words, you get a little pencil drawing at the bottom and says, here's the dimensions of the box that you live in, here's your garage and stuff. And you see that front porch in the picture, but I don't see it drawn down here. So
Every now and then the township assessor goes through and updates pictures.
yeah,
So
Yeah.
the newer picture just got overlaid on the.
I made the mistake of telling the township I had a fully floored attic, and the next thing I knew I was assessed against it, because it could be a living
Yeah.
space. It's
Yeah.
no water to it, but, so, I guess be careful what you say, but it's a good question, but I didn't have, Tom or, can't remember his daughter's name, to ask if they could pin it down to anything. I looked at the sheets, I didn't see any dates other than, at the bottom where somebody's updated, but, as I say, the picture from 1995 does show your deck, porch, does show your porch, and, but it doesn't give a reference as to when it was put in.
Right.
But all that tells me is it's been there for a long time, and ergo it's non-conforming. So I guess what's the, because as I say, in my mind, this is the key to the whole thing. If you believe, and I'm just going to read what I wrote here. It's easier for me sometimes to write it down. If you believe that the paragraph, this paragraph A, prohibits modification of the existing physical non-conforming construction in any way or configuration, let me just read it. Does the paragraph prohibit any modification of the existing physical non-conforming structure configuration in any way. So in other words, can she build on it or not? You know, so, and again, the paragraph says, can't enlarge or alter the non-conforming structure if it increases the non-conformity. But you can enlarge or alter it in a manner that does not increase the non-conformity. Again, what the heck does that mean? So all I could come back to was, what is increasing the non-conformity? Well, what's the non-conformity? The non-conformity is the front yard setback.
Clearly, it's not conforming, but if she's asking for a hardship to expand, that's really our decision. Do we ask that?
Yeah,
Answer that.
So she's got to,
And I think Ross just read off the answer. If it doesn't alter or include, that
Increase.
line across the front of her front yard is the non-conforming line that she's at right now.
Right.
yeah,
She's going this way, along that parallel
Right, right.
line. There's
Yeah.
there's no increase to the non-conformity.
right.
At all.
The 7.5 feet out from the right of way does, by the things that you're asking to do, does not increase that. So in my mind, it's a non-issue. I think that's what, again, I'm speaking for me. I think that's what, if you had gone before the planning commission and said, hey, I want to have you designate me a Class A non-conforming site structure, because this is what I want to do. It's in keeping with other houses in the area. It's really not detracting property values, so on and so on. I believe they would have given it to you. I don't know for sure, but I believe they would have. So that's kind of my thought. Is there anybody that really disagreeing with that? Or you see something else that I don't see? Again, somebody might say just a pure act of adding volume increases the nonconformity.
That's what it is, it's going to the north.
Well, you're going
It's not
laterally.
going-
Well, so you're increasing volume. You're
Yes.
adding
Right, she's
something that's
increasing
not
square footage,
there.
but she hasn't extended out.
But
past-
she's not
that line.
increasing it.
Exactly.
Because it's still flush with the north side of the building.
It will be,
Right.
as I understand your site plan, it's flush with the north side, so it does not extend towards Prospect other than to the side of the building, and it does not come any further out than the current porch is.
Right. The existing porch that's there lines up with the south side of the house.
Mhm.
And if I'm permitted to do it, then the north side will line up too. So it will go all the way across the
Yeah.
front.
Yeah. So let's just assume for a second then that since she's not increasing, then you pass that decision test. That she's allowed to make those modifications. Then the next thing we would look at is deciding on the applicable porch dimensions and the applicable roof dimensions, and we kind of talked about it already. Assuming, again, this is like a big logic test, right? We're already assuming that the old enclosed porch, which is 12 feet off of the property line, the right of way, what the zoning ordinance says about porches, because it's got its own section for porches, decks, so on. What's applicable there is that it can be 8 feet off of an approved setback. Your setback's 12 feet for the primary residence. Can be out 8 feet, which takes it, which could be further close to the right of way than the 7.5 feet, but no closer than 5 feet. You're not looking to expand it to 8 feet. You just want to keep what you got and go sideways across the rest of the front of the house. So you're halfway across the front of the house now for all intents and purposes. This takes you to the other half.
So here's where she wants to go, the
Yeah.
9'2" by 4
Yeah.
foot 11.
Yeah, so this is 9.4, and you want to add another So 9 feet 4 inches is what you already got, and you want to add another 9 feet. I'm sorry.
Oh, that way.
Yeah, yeah.
9'2".
9 foot 2 more. You want to add another 9 foot 2. So you're just at about half, and you want to complete it, take it all the way over, and then you go on to the roof. Roof dimensions. Roof's got its own section in the zoning ordinance. It's got some additional information in there. The big thing is eaves that go way out, or gutters that project way out. Ann does have a gutter depicted on her site plan, but it's I don't know, it looks like a 5 or 6 inch gutter. It's not projecting out. You're well within what
And
you're.
that gutter will come off.
Yeah.
And a new one will go on the front of the new overhead.
Yeah. I guess the one thing I would just mention to these guys, in case they have a different perspective, is currently there is no roof on this porch. Ann wants to add a roof that goes across the old section and the new section. I do not see an issue with that, assuming that everybody believes that increasing the nonconformity is just moving outward towards the right-of-way and not involves moving laterally to the side of the house. If you would say, no, that's an issue because it's increasing the nonconformity because I put this roof over the top of the porch. Again, as Kevin cited, it's unenclosed. Then we get into a discussion about, can you even do a roof, or can you do a roof over the old section but not the new section? Again, my personal opinion is she's not increasing on anything she's doing, porch or roof. She's not increasing the current nonconformity. So
Sounds like a motion.
I don't see an issue. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking for somebody to argue with me.
Yeah.
Come on, I'm ready. And maybe not. I just.
I've said my piece.
Okay. All right. So I can make a motion. So but I would ask to be able to write a couple things into the minutes because, again, I want to recognize that you could have gone to planning on this, and they maybe made a decision a month ago. You would have had to have a public hearing. You had a public hearing tonight. We didn't talk specifically about that designation. So in my motion, I would not put here that she is a Class A non-conforming property. You would have to go to planning to do that. But I think you get your porch and stuff done. What Class A nonconformity does is it really kind of locks it in for the future until that house gets torn down. Class B, something could change, although I wouldn't think so because it's in a residential area, but something could change that would, put you back on the hot seat, and you would have to arm wrestle planning or zoning on having it taken out or not taken out. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what I want to put in here was, I'll put it in the minutes before the. Yes, ma'am.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Is Ann tearing off the front porch, or you're just adding to it?
The old one will come off.
Come off?
I don't know if you saw that, Joe.
No, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, this is what she has, and she's wants to go north with the porch.
To rebuild
But
it.
you're taking the existing porch off.
The
So
old-
you're
yeah.
removing the nonconformity.
I've advised Ann, but you're the building official. I've said, leave a post in there somewhere.
Yes.
So you don't take everything out, because I don't know, sometimes that catches, if it's not a big issue.
But if she gets it approved with a variance, she's allowed to build it, so.
That's true, That's true. A lot of times in current construction, to not change designations and things, you leave something
Right.
Right.
there. But I'm gonna go with what he says. He's the building official.
As part of redoing the porch is also having to raise it up because it makes it easier to get in for
Right.
if you're elderly or
Make it
getting
easier.
stuff in. And
Well,
it's-
right, and I
It's too
wouldn't,
low right now.
yeah, I would certainly wanna raise it. I would just maybe leave a post in there or something.
Right,
But again,
right.
if the
Build on
building
that.
inspector's not concerned about replacing posts and stuff, then I'm certainly not gonna say anything. He's much more fluent on building code than I am and what's allowed.
The outside posts will have to be replaced if it goes through, because those will have to be to support the roof.
Yes, yes.
So they'll be taller.
Yeah, absolutely. I would expect that. So what I would add in here before the motion, I mean, the motion's the motion, but I just wanted to add a couple clarifying sentences in here, and I would say, the appellant was advised to bring this variance issue before the ZBA when it could have been decided by the planning commission. The planning commission should have made a determination of Class A or Class B for this non-conforming structure, but we didn't do that. Since that did not happen, shouldn't ad lib. Since that did not happen, and to not further delay providing an answer to you, the ZBA is treating the structure as a Class B nonconformity in order to render a decision. That's just my logic as to if somebody would ever say, well, why didn't you go to planning and get yourself designated as a Class A? I don't want you to do any more work than you've already done. We've already had a delay due to my error on posting, so I don't want to have you wait any longer. If you're okay with it, and then we'll go for it. So I would make a motion then. I wrote it in advance, this way I can, but I got two of them, one to do it, one not to do it. So I would make a motion to approve the front yard setback variance for the lateral extension of the porch and addition of a porch roof, so long as it does not decrease the current setback distance of approximately 7.5 feet. I'm going to say to the right of way, to the,
It's not mine.
and to submit a site plan to the building inspector for review and permits as required. What do you guys think?
From what I've heard, I'll second that.
Yeah,
So
Sounds
you're
about
good
right.
with it, or?
that sounds good.
Okay,
Approve it.
guess can I get a second?
I just did.
Oh,
Moved
okay.
and seconded.
You can't make this stuff up, so I got hearing aids, and when I get phone calls, it goes right into my hearing aid, and so that's going off, and then Kevin's talking, I can't hear what he's
I'm
saying.
seriously not trying to go into trucker voice. I can do that if you'd like.
They hung up, but it's
Trucker.
miracle
You
of
wanna
modern
vote on the
technology.
motion?
Yeah,
Moved and
so,
seconded?
so,
You wanna,
so, I'm gonna, so
you're still chair.
Ross,
Please, you know,
Kevin.
Please write down the notes.
yeah.
all right, I'm gonna, oops, wrong piece of paper, sorry. So I'm gonna take out the no.
Come prepared, Ross.
This one was a tough one. So,
And I apologize, I would have gone to planning if I would have been advised that was where I was supposed to go.
no,
first.
No.
I would just say before we vote on it that just shows you the complexity of some of this stuff. I don't know that anybody saw it, and I just saw it today. And I just thought, one more time, because this is so convoluted. And what do you do first, second, third? That's why we're going through this sequence, because you can't really approve a porch and then you go back and say, but the nonconformity says you can't increase. And so I wanted to do it in a certain way that made logical sense. So, okay. So I guess the motion's on the floor. Mike,
Kevin seconded it already.
Okay.
And,
be all in,
motion to approve. Is that what I need to say?
say aye?
Aye.
I'm gonna abstain on that one.
Okay. That's good, yeah, thanks. Okay, looks like the motion's passed, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Sorry for all of the issues, problems, perturbations.
So
Don't come
now-
back with another tough one like this again, please.
I don't think I'm gonna add anything else on. So now do I apply for a permit or,
Yeah, actually, there's a new inspector now. I'm no longer the
okay,
backup, I'm not the primary one. We have a new guy, so if you want to apply for it, show them the plans, and
is there anything I need to show them that you approved it?
we can give you a copy of the minutes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, what I would recommend, because I mean, you probably want to get it going right away. It may take me a week or so to get around to doing this, but if he has any questions, he can call me. He can certainly call Dennis, and it's just that the variance did get approved. He
Okay,
doesn't, unless he's interested in an hour-long discussion, he doesn't have to ask why.
Yeah, I'll talk to Ray, the new inspector.
Okay. and I'm
No.
not even sure that the contractor that's gonna do it can do it now. It may have to wait till spring, so.
Yeah, I think
I
it's
don't
good for
know what
a
else needs
year.
that.
Once you get your plan approved, so I wouldn't necessarily wait to put a plan in, and then you got a year to do something with it,
Okay.
and before you have to come back. And if you come back, just go through planning and
Okay.
talk to me, and I can point out where it says, no, they should really be doing this. And there's actually a section in here that says what you got to do, and it's pretty simple
Okay,
to go from there. And I would go at some point and get your Class A, and just, but again, that requires a public hearing. You may not want to go through all that. So, okay. All right, so thank you guys for letting me drone on about this. This is, again, this was a doozy. It took a lot of time and looking stuff up, and so I appreciate your dealing with the changes over the last month and a half, I think, and stuff as I try to get my arms around it. Okay.
So our next step is approval of the minutes from the April 11th, 24
I'm gonna,
ZBA appeal.
Dennis, I'm just gonna put that you resume control over the meeting.
Of course, Kevin, you weren't at that meeting.
That's correct.
Okay. So you would
We have a
be
copy of the meeting minutes. Yeah.
abstaining, okay. And again, I do have on my sheet, I do have the attendees at that meeting. Yours just says attached public attendance sheet, so that didn't give that to you.
Any discussion about the minutes from the April? Any motions?
None that I can think of.
Any motion to approve?
I make a motion. Well,
Gotta get
I wrote them up. I'm not gonna do it. One of you two guys can make a motion.
second to approve the motion.
You're gonna be you make the motion.
Mike?
Make the
Okay.
All right, so Kevin or Dennis, either you guys second?
Oh, that's
He
the
can't.
problem.
Oh, did you?
I was
Yeah.
not here. That's the
Oh,
problem.
Oh, that's right.
I'll
you can't-
second.
Okay, so it's gonna be Mike and Dennis, and Kevin abstains. Okay,
So it's been moved and seconded. Roll call, or not roll call, we have it. All those for aye,
aye.
Aye.
all those nay? Motion approved.
Motion passed, okay.
Minutes been approved. Any citizen comments?
Thank you. I appreciate your consideration and all the time spent on it.
I apologize for the delay. Everything was ready to go, and I got other directed, and lost sight of the fact that I needed to get it up here, and I was a day late. Okay. Thanks.
Any board comments?
So, all right, I think you guys know it already, but I had submitted a resignation notice. Feel like I've done, it's kind of like Joe. Joe said, I've done my time after, how many years were you? 20 years?
Almost.
Yeah, I've done 10 years, 11, 12 years. I got to get other stuff done. And this doesn't take a lot of time, but when something comes up, it's always at the worst time, and then it takes a lot of time.
So can we contract out for you to do our minutes, or?
Yeah. I mean, if I guess if I would just say if you want to pursue that with council, I mean, right now.
Can we call you? Hey, Rob.
Well, as a council liaison, I don't get paid anything for this. You guys at least get a couple shekels, and I get paid.
We'll give you a cut, you know.
This is a lot of work, and
Even when I was off, I always got phone calls, so.
yeah.
I don't see anything wrong with, looking up references.
Well, that's because you're wonderful.
Thank you. I know that.
It is interesting, and I do find it a mental challenge to go through some of this stuff, which is good. As I get older, I like the mental challenge, and so I'm not adverse to it. But I would. What will happen here is there's no other appeals on the deck that I'm aware of. I would recommend, in fact, should have put a bullet here. We didn't add it, but I'm going to recommend we set a rough date for the next meeting, which would be 6 months out. So that'd be June. We can adjust however you want to do it. But what would happen then is I would resubmit my resignation letter. I submitted it. It was accepted. I screwed up the last meeting announcement. I took it back because I don't like to leave stuff unfinished. We're getting this done. I'm going to resubmit it. Michelle will then put a notice out. But if you need any help,
Yeah. So Kevin, we usually have 2 meetings a year, and then we'll wait for an appeal too if that comes up. But just to kind of keep in touch, and if there's anything coming on, down the line that we need to know about, and just kind of keep refreshes as a zoning board.
Okay.
Instead of meeting only every 2 years or something.
we've gone. Yeah, we've gone several years without meeting, and so.
I think at one point we were just short of five years without a meeting.
Yeah, so
Long time.
we instituted got council to approve 2 administrative meetings a year. So I don't forget what Dennis looks like, and we can talk zoning issues potentially, and it just keeps the gears kind of lubricated, right?
So with that being said, it's good to keep looking at the zoning book, or on occasion have it available and kind of be familiar with it,
Well, I would say, Dennis, I would put out a call to Becky to get copies of the new zoning ordinance, since there is a new one. It is online,
Already got
as
it.
it was announced, but you already got it.
Carry this around.
Okay.
Yeah, that could be,
Cumbersome.
find a new home.
Yeah,
I know, I got a fire pit.
Yeah, I would not.
That's why these are nice.
It's a whole lot better
Yeah,
than
too, but I gotta figure
I just
that
do
out.
better with paper. So, yeah, if you don't have one,
I'm a hybrid,
Mike, and
so-
Don probably doesn't have one, we should, if we can get them a new copy,
Oh, I got it.
so they're not
Laptop.
looking at, potentially an old version. Because as I say, the first thing I needed to do was make sure that stuff I looked at in the old one was compliant with what was in the new one, because we came in the middle of the change. And thanks for nothing, and that's what you did. And I'm kidding. Okay, and then I would just, Dennis, if it's okay with you, I'll just put in the minutes, the next meeting would be tentatively June, could be.
Are we good with that, you guys?
Could
June,
be.
anything special happening? Nothing?
That's
June looks good?
6 months, right? So assuming no appeals, we just do the next one in 6 months, and
June
then.
2025.
Okay.
Merry Christmas.
That sounds like a
Motion
We
to
have
adjourn.
lead up to a motion
Motion
to
adjourned. We have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Okay,
Moved and
so,
seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
so was that was Mike and Kevin.
Yep.
Adjourned at 8:06.
8:06.